Welcome to the Your Message Received podcast. And now, taking your message to the finish line, your host, John Duffin.
Hey folks, John Duffin here with Duffin Media. Welcome back to another episode of Your Message Received. Your Message Received is the home, the place, the platform, the podcast, where we help you find your most true, authentic business voice. Why don't we go even further? Find your true, authentic voice. Get what you want, find what you need, improve your results, make billions of dollars, meet the person of your dreams. All right, we're not quite there yet with the last two, but everything else I feel quite confident we can deliver for you. And we love that you keep watching and listening and sharing. It means a lot. And one of the reasons I feel increasingly confident that we can walk the walk in regards to delivering this arc to authenticity in communications is that we have people that walk the walk. And today is no exception. So here's what I get to do, and I'm really grateful for this. Christian Espinoza happens to be a published author, is a well-known and increasingly in-demand powerful keynote speaker, created Blue Goat Cyber, which happens to be an organization designed to combat cybercrime through tech prowess and emotional intelligence. And my God, if you did nothing else, that's a lot. So welcome to the show, man. It's nice to have you. It's great for you to be here.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on, John.
100%. Folks, and too, like I said, I'm grateful to a platform called Podmatch where I get to find people, and Christian happens to be one of those people that I get to meet from a great it's called Podmatch, which is a podcast matching source. So I've gotten this head start in terms of communications. There's a ton of directions I want to go, especially when things change and move you. I got to tell you right off the bat, just because I liked it. For you growing up in Arkansas, maybe the host should add it. Growing up in Arkansas or moving to Arkansas from California, that feels like a major transition. What was it like to make that shift?
It was a major transition. I went from Riverside, California, which is basically a suburb of LA,
right,
to a town called Knoxville, Arkansas, with a population of 800 people. So I was the city boy picked on, the only person that was from out of town, and everybody was different in Arkansas. It's a different culture than California, obviously. And I remember I was in fifth grade when I moved. I was so bored because fifth grade in Arkansas, and this is no offense to Arkansas, fifth grade in Arkansas was like third grade in California. So I was so bored, I actually got Fs, a couple of Fs, and it was back in the day where you could, as paper report cards. So I changed the Fs to Bs. So my mother didn't get upset with me, but I eventually found my way in Arkansas. I learned to fish and hunt and do all the Arkansas things.
So how long were you able to pull off the F to B's part?
It was only fifth grade that I got the Fs.
And, I understand. But what I'm just saying is, when was it that you came clean with the grades, especially to mom? So like I said, when
I don't even know if I really needed to change the grades. My mother was mainly checked out on drugs and prescription meds and things, so she probably didn't even care. In fact, she used to make comments that she thought I thought it was better than everybody because I went to college and was second in my class in high school and things like that. So I found my way and turned things around, regardless of what my mother thought or her circumstances.
I gotcha. How long, including maybe it's still ongoing, how long has it been where, as you said, it's not combative, but it's the realization that your mom is going through something that's really challenging? And how long was that? Was that turned around on your mom's side, or was it more of a case of you adapting to what those circumstances were?
I think it's a case for me adapting, especially during my childhood. I just had
Yeah.
to accept the circumstances and deal with them.
Hmm.
I had a lot of resentment towards my mother.
Hmm.
I feel like I was a pretty strong and resilient individual and had the capability to escape from my childhood per
Hmm.
se. My brothers, not so much.
Okay.
The chaotic life and the arrest and car wrecks and
Hmm.
cops coming over all the time and fights and just violence and just chaos. I somehow survived it, but my brothers didn't so much. And eventually, my mother ended up ODing on oxycontin or oxycodone, whatever you call it.
Hmm.
Um, quite some time ago.
Hmm.
Eventually I realized, whatever she was going through, she's fighting her own demons. I think a lot of it was her relationship with her mother. I
Hmm.
don't think she felt accepted. So I changed that resentment to gratitude because I feel
Okay.
like if my childhood was easy,
Hmm.
I may not have developed the resilience or the drive to prove people wrong in my small town in Arkansas that I
Hmm.
can rise above my
Hmm.
circumstances.
Yeah, and you in the meantime, at that time, are taking on some big things, whether it's sports, whether like I said, it's you're becoming. You call your book "The Smartest Person in the Room," and I love the title, by the way. But we'll get to that in a moment. But more, I'm thinking you in turn, your way of handling that is building up some armor. It seems in regards to being. Uh, a sense of being more than rather than less than. Why do you think you were able to take that different path? You were talking about your brothers, and in regards to the paths that they took, what made you different in your mind? What was it in your mind that fueled you with all of this turbulence going on?
I've always had this, I don't know if it's a gift, sometimes
Mhm.
it's a curse, but I reflect a lot and I think a lot and I look at people and their behavior and
Right.
even from a young age. And
Hmm.
what I realized is my mother was trying to escape and have fun, but
Hmm.
it wasn't really fun for her or her friends. They were not happy.
Right.
And I knew inside, I guess I also have the gift of like tuning into myself. And I've been
Hmm.
largely unaware that I've been able to do that until I did a lot of work.
Hmm.
But I knew that that life was not a life I wanted.
Mm.
And for some reason, at a young age, I had the ability to realize that I'm the one that can take agency over my life and make changes. No, everyone else has a little bit of influence, but ultimately,
Hmm.
my life is in my hands, and I'm like 99.999% responsible for it. So yeah, I had that gift at a young age to just take the ownership and
Hmm.
realize there's a way out of here, and I just have to take the
Mm.
steps.
How old you say at a young age? What do you mean young age? When you started to realize that and put that into play. Help me. How old were you?
I was probably when I first became aware
Mhm.
of this, I was probably maybe 10 or
Okay.
11
Okay.
in California.
Hmm.
I
Yep.
remember my mother used to same thing, play loud music and the cops would
Right.
come over, all these crazy people would be
Yep.
over. And I remember
Mhm.
just going up to this hill
Mhm.
above our house and sitting there and I could still hear the music, because it was so loud
Mhm.
and just distancing myself from the circumstances and thinking like I just zoomed out and I saw
Mhm.
the house, I heard the music, but I also
Mhm.
saw everything else. And I realized this is just one little aspect of life and it doesn't have to
Right.
consume me.
Christian was the music a heavy metal fan, and I'm thinking at 10 and especially as you transition to life in Arkansas, did you use that as a way to keep people away from you, or did you just like it? And there's no wrong answer. I'm just
Did I
curious.
use heavy metal to keep people away from me?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're blasting heavy metal. Did you use it to keep people away?
Well, I don't know if it's kind of like the movie Footloose where he was playing heavy metal and
Right?
kind of like that.
Right?
Um, I mean, there's quite a few people in Arkansas that like heavy metal, so I
Mhm.
attracted the right people,
Mhm.
that liked the same kind of
Okay,
music.
great. So you used it to draw people in a
to draw
sense,
people in, and also I
right?
felt a connection with
Mhm.
heavy
Mhm.
metal. There's
Yep.
a
Mhm.
it's not like an anger necessarily. There
Yeah.
is a desire to be authentic, right?
Hmm.
That say this is
Exactly.
me, this is what I'm going to do,
Right.
and
Hmm.
you can like it or not.
There's an old cliche, which is to me one of my personal favorites for me, where the person that was saying it was literally, it's like, well, you like what you like, and that typically defines a lot. Um, so you go on to do some strong and impressive things. And here's the thing that I think about in regards to when somebody is maybe swimming upstream, so to speak, and the circumstances are not necessarily ideal. When did you start doing the things like Ironman and taking on the roles of sports and taking on challenges that are more than the norm?
That was a transition for me. As I mentioned,
Mhm.
my childhood was very chaotic.
Yeah.
There was no safety, no
Mhm.
security. So
Mhm.
we tend to, at least for me, I sought safety and security.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
I went to the Air Force Academy. I got a
Mhm.
scholarship there. That was my
Mhm.
ticket out of
Yep.
Arkansas.
Yeah.
And I served in the military for 6 years.
Mhm.
Became a defense contractor. Was married. Had the dog, the white
Mhm.
picket fence, and all that.
Mhm.
And had the 9 to 5 job later on. And I realized, and it took me a while to unravel this,
Mhm.
that I don't really value security and safety. In that moment, when I
Oh.
realized that was when I was working as a VP for a company,
Mhm.
making a lot of money.
Mhm.
I had the title as well and all
Mhm.
that. And I had this run-in with the CEO,
Mm.
and it
Right.
was like causing me so much stress that I
Mhm.
just said, screw it, and quit without having another job lined up. And
On the
that's the first
spot,
time
or did
on
it build?
it built it it,
Yeah.
it built it
Mhm.
builded built. And then yeah, I just quit, and I was like, you
Mhm.
know what, I'm gonna figure it out. And that moment, which some people think, you know is a defining moment, it was for me.
Sure.
I decided to become a freelancer and a solopreneur, and that started
Mhm.
me on the journey of thinking, the security and
Mhm.
safety comes from within,
Mhm.
not external.
Oh, wow. So to doing the work and coming to that realization, and I'll also say, and making big decisions
Mhm.
like that, how much time I was doing the math in my head. Now, like I said, you join the military 6 years, job in defense, married, a white picket, like how much time has elapsed from, say, even 18, when, like I said, you're still sometimes, even though technically it's when you become adult, uh that you're still in more of a safety mode? How much time elapsed when you made that big leap, so to speak?
uh Too much time. It took me a long time to make that leap.
Mhm.
I was in the Air Force Academy for 4 years, in the
Right.
military for six. That's 10 years
Yep.
right
10
there,
years.
and then
Yep.
probably another, I would say, close to like 10 more years. So at this
Hmm.
point, I would be like, 35, 36, I
Hmm.
imagine.
Hey, do you mind if I ask you, why would you say too much time?
Because I feel like I would be much further along if I had
Hmm.
listened to my inner voice earlier.
Mm.
I
Mm.
ignored it though. I try to
Hmm.
logically rationalize. You're not smart enough to do that. You don't know how to do
Hmm.
that. You're not good enough to start your own business. It's too risky. And I listen to my friends and
Hmm.
listen to the wrong influences.
I like when people say that, not because I like that it happened. I feel that, and I've done that. And so for me, that's why I like it when people walk through the steps. Now,
Mhm.
I'm always sorry to hear when somebody says that, but I like the fact that at least when you give me the numbers, it's 38, right? Let's say 30s, late 30s,
Mhm.
or approximate. Um, I'm still like, oh, thank God, because there's people like part of my audience sector, they're like their 40s, their 50s, 60s, you know? And so I'm always like, okay, this is a champion move and a gutsy move. So stay with me here. You make this leap. And what was that like? like, okay, quit the job. Yeah, here we are. Uh,
Mhm.
Screw it, as you say. So now what?
It was about hustling. I was
Okay.
determined to make it work,
Hmm.
and I had to find gigs and work my network and
Right.
put myself in different situations
Hmm.
and be uncomfortable.
Hmm.
Um, and it ended up working very, very well.
Yeah.
I ended up teaching classes all over the world,
Hmm.
cybersecurity
Hmm.
classes, and doing ethical hacking and doing
Hmm.
consulting jobs for
Hmm.
Department of Homeland Security. So it worked, and then I eventually got bored with it
Hmm.
and thought, this is just my perspective. I thought
Hmm.
it's a little bit selfish here. I'm making a lot of money, but I'm not really contributing at the
Hmm.
level I want to contribute or I think I'm capable of contributing. So in 2014, I decided to form my first cybersecurity business.
Hmm.
And I thought this is a way to hire people, empower people,
Hmm.
make a difference,
Hmm.
and force me to grow
Hmm.
because I felt like I'd plateaued with the freelance or solopreneur
Hmm.
work.
You said something in your book. It's in fact, it's really early in what you get to hear on Amazon with the sample, where you talk about the timeline as it relates to getting licenses, and and I'm laughing because you talked about the 1,500 hours, if I got that correct, of
Yeah.
time or actual time needed to get your beautician license, if I got you correct. I never know what the exact technical term of getting
Yeah.
your
Your
beautician
hairstylist to
license.
become a hairstylist.
Hairstylist, thank you. I'm
Yeah.
calling it beautician, just aging me. But 1,500 hours versus, as you said, if I heard you correctly, overnight you can make more than serious headway. So, and that's is that still true, by the way?
Yeah, the analogy is in cybersecurity, this is why we have is I think a lot of our problems is there's no
Yeah.
real barrier to entry.
Mm.
So
Mm.
you can take a test tomorrow and be
Right.
qualified,
Hmm.
and there are multiple choice tests and there's test banks where you can basically cheat the test.
Hmm.
And I just thought it was interesting that somebody that protects your data
Hmm.
can have almost no experience, but the person that cuts your hair, which
Right.
is your hair grows back, has to go through 1,500 hours of
1,500
training.
hours. So I find it mind numbing, and by the way, also terrifying because, like you talk about, like points to entry. I would have thought, or I guess it was, I would have hoped that the barrier to entry would have been, in essence, like a wall. You know what I mean? Like you think of cybersecurity, like these walls. So that I didn't know that. I almost wish I didn't. But there's multiple reasons. One more reason I get to not sleep at night. But this is what it's fascinating to me. By the way, no offense to the hairstylist. I'm perfectly fine with all that. No judgment shots there. Uh, it is just the fact I really thought of it. I know a couple of people in cybersecurity, and I always thought of it as like almost like you talked about your life in the military, and I think it like the old Marines cliche, you know what I mean? The few, the proud. I really thought that's what it was. So you're walking around not only knowing that, but teaching people and getting the lectures and as you said, making a lot of money at the time.
Mhm.
Um, so you take another leap and secure your own business, um, so that you can contribute more. Walk me through the steps of building the business.
It was about every mistake you can make with those steps.
Sorry for
I,
laughing.
no, it's all
I'm
right.
laughing with you, not at you. So anyway, give me some
You,
examples so
you
that we
don't know
learn
what
from them.
you don't know what you don't know. So I
Yeah.
built this business. I thought
Hmm.
everybody needs cybersecurity, so I'm going to start a cybersecurity business.
Hmm.
So I started the business, and I tried to sell cybersecurity to everyone,
Hmm.
which meant my message was diluted, which meant I
Hmm.
didn't resonate with anyone.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I did manage to succeed, but it was I put all my money and all my eggs in the
Hmm.
basket, so I had no
Right.
choice. I mean, I would tell myself that if I lost everything, I had a minivan that I had paid off, and I could just live in the minivan. That's like there were like literally moments with that business I thought that might happen. Um, Yeah, so
I laugh because I feel like that happens to a lot of people in a lot of businesses. So apparently, cybersecurity. I'll remove cybersecurity as, oh well, then once you're in, you're set for life. So apparently not so. So that's to me. Um, I feel like that's when you get to do things. At least that's what I hope, that you get to do things that really resonate and at least address those sorts of things. So I love that you just said almost every mistake you can make. So you tighten up the game, so to speak, for you by and there's an expression that you use which I find really, really powerful, which is going for the micro. Um, Rather than, and then you think about the macro and top lines, and you just said a moment ago the part
Mhm.
where you tried to appeal to everybody. So the message was diluted and you appealed to nobody. Walk me through in terms of like the transition in your mind, the personal circumstances, and I'm referring to the accident that you witnessed, that you were there from, to make you see things more tight, differently.
I think something I struggle with
Mm-hmm.
is, as I mentioned, my childhood is trying to prove something
Mm.
to other people. So
Mm-hmm.
for the
Mm-hmm.
longest time, I sought, I think, achievement as a way to not just prove it to other people, but to prove things to myself. Like
Sure.
I'm capable of doing, 24 Ironman, as if one's not
Mm-hmm.
enough. I got to
Yeah.
do 23 more,
Mm-hmm.
or I got to climb the seven summits, or I always got to up the limit.
Mm-hmm.
And then I I've made a lot of mistakes in my life, and it was sort of crystallized the topic from my last book, The In Between Life and the Micro, when I witnessed that
Yeah.
car accident.
Mm-hmm.
And the accident itself is a macro moment,
Right.
but what was interesting in the accident is
Mm-hmm.
my girlfriend and I were the only people that got out to help. Everyone, it was a busy intersection. Everyone else just sat in the
Okay.
car, filming,
Okay.
acting frustrated,
Mm-hmm.
on their phone.
Mm-hmm.
So we got up to help, and there was a woman that hit a T-boned a truck. The woman got out of the car. The car was totally smashed,
Mm-hmm.
and she was in shock. And she had like
Yeah.
glass
Sure.
falling off of her, and
Sure.
I think her arm was broken, her leg was
Mm-hmm.
broken, and she didn't look very good. And my girlfriend's a nurse, so she caught the woman before she like fell to the floor at the intersection.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and the only thing that she cared about though in this moment was talking to her husband, and she didn't know where her cell phone was. So she asked me to call her husband. So I called her husband
Mm-hmm.
and told him what happened.
Mm-hmm.
She gave me the number, and I used my phone, and then let her talk to him.
Do you remember what that was like? How that felt as you were watching? Because it's the only thing she wanted was to talk to her husband. And you're hearing the conversation. Do you remember what it felt like?
It felt like I guess for me, like all the sorry.
Don't be. Oh gosh, don't be.
It was just a reminder that sometimes we get so focused on these big things, at least me,
Hmm. Hmm.
that ultimately they don't matter. And what mattered in that moment to that woman was just telling her husband she was okay. Like
Hmm.
nothing else mattered.
Hmm. Hmm.
And it was a reminder that because I've made a lot of mistakes in my life, and
Right.
it's just a reminder that there's got to be balance, right? Because I used to be
Hmm.
so focused on these big goals
Hmm.
that I let things fall apart right in front of me, like relationships, my
Hmm.
health,
Yep.
my wealth. So it was a recentering that I need to balance going
Hmm.
after something big, but also
Hmm.
paying attention to what's right in front of me. And this could be a health, wealth, relationships. Uh, and it solidified that that's what I need to write the book about.
Wow.
Because I had a couple ideas in that moment. It was like an inner voice told me this is the
Hmm.
topic I need to write the book about. And
Hmm.
going through that exercise of writing the book uh, was transformational. I think a book should be transformational to the author as well as anyone
Right.
that reads it.
Hmm.
So it's really a focused memoir on where I've messed things up
Hmm.
and where I've got things right. And hopefully
Mm.
I'll be
Hmm.
better.
Hmm.
Hopefully I can evolve.
Yeah.
So it's about that. And then yeah, and for me, I don't want to keep making the same mistakes. I probably will
Hmm.
several times before they're beat into me, not what
Hmm.
not to do, and before I can change my behavior.
Right.
But that was yeah, that was the reason I wrote the book.
I'm so glad you expressed it, and I love that you expressed it the way that you did. Of all of that, you talking about this body of information that's now in front of you, in essence, like whether or not a book is your life story, and most often they aren't, unless you're writing a bio, that it was the sense that you laid out everything, the mistakes and all that sort of thing. What do you remember changing first that mattered to you? That where it was, I'm always curious when people have big dreams, and obviously you've taken it. So, what was the first time after you wrote the book and you see everything in a sense, and it's transformative to you? What was the first thing you took on where you felt, you know what, I'm really glad I took that on. I'm really glad. I mean, do you remember?
Yes, it was showing up with intentions or a goal for a
Hmm.
micro moment.
Okay.
An example
Yeah.
in the past, if I went to dinner with my girlfriend
Hmm.
and let's say the waiter messed the order up, I would let that sort of derail the evening and I'd get upset about it
Okay.
because I didn't set the intention. And
Hmm.
now
Mm.
I set the intention. Like the intention is for us to have a good time, for us to reconnect,
Hmm.
or for us to, have a meaningful conversation.
Hmm.
And when I hold that vision
Hmm.
or that intention and not let the circumstances override it, the evening, of course, is going to go better. So if the waiter does mess up the order,
Hmm.
it's not that big a deal. It's I'm still going to hold the vision for the micro moment or our dinner, and not let it be derailed.
When was the first time, Christian, stay with me for 1 second. Let me ask you, you set an intention. Like that's kind of beautiful in the sense that it wasn't, you're not going to let something as insignificant as the service of either a waiter or staff person or something with the food to derail the intention of the evening.
Mhm.
When did you start, speaking of intention, did you start doing that with more things, and how quickly? Like, I love that realization. I love that you did it, and I love the fact that it worked in your mind. So, how did you incorporate that into more things?
I try to incorporate it into everything.
Hmm.
Like what I want out of my life, and as a macro level, but then
Hmm.
also what I want out of a relationship as a
Hmm.
macro level, and then
Hmm.
how do I help that overall goal in the
Hmm.
small moments?
Right.
Like if I want a
Hmm.
relationship to have great communication, then I need to be
Hmm.
having great
Hmm.
communication in every small moment.
Hmm.
Because life is a culmination of these small moments, and
Hmm.
sometimes we think, well, we'll do it later, but later may not come, or if you keep putting that off, your life is going to look the same, and you're going to wonder why nothing ever changed.
Hmm. Hmm. So, you're starting to make these inroads, these personal transformations, and you're also setting up your own company. when did that merge for you in regards to like the intentionality in regards to facilitating a business and the people around you? Because as the old cliche goes, you never have to go it alone. And
Mhm.
so you're impacting other people at this point, whether it's clients, whether it's staff, or what have you. Talk to me about intentionality in terms of what you learned as it related to the way that you related to your business.
So it wasn't like an overnight thing.
Sure.
I did learn a lot from the book and the micro moments. My first
Hmm.
business, I sold it in 2020,
Hmm.
and then I was grateful for selling it. This was during COVID,
Hmm.
and as I worked for their parent company,
Okay.
I realized I started feeling trapped, and I felt trapped in a number
Huh.
of areas of my life, and that culminated in me almost dying from blood clots. So I had six blood
Hmm.
clots in my left leg,
Hmm.
uh, thanks to a medical device, a Doppler, a portable Doppler ultrasound. They were
Right.
able to quickly diagnose me, and I had just done like 120 burpees the day before, so I was in
Hmm.
good shape. It's not like I haven't taken care of myself.
No, sure.
And then that put me through a lot of depression because I was told I couldn't exercise, I couldn't travel, and those are things I did all the time.
Hmm.
I couldn't go on hikes. I could basically just sit on the couch and watch reruns of Yellowstone.
For how
Uh,
long were they saying?
so the experts, quote
Yeah.
experts, the
Yeah.
doctors, they wanted me to take blood thinners the rest of my life.
Oh.
So I, it was probably almost a year I went
Hmm.
through this. At
Wow.
first, I was grateful, and then I was grateful for being alive.
Hmm.
But then I started feeling caged and trapped because
Right.
I didn't want to live my life that way. So one day I was looking at the blood thinners and I just threw them across the room. I'm like, I'm not taking these anymore. I'm going to
Hmm.
reclaim my life
Hmm.
because nobody cares about my life more than I do, and
Right.
I'm not feeling confident. I'm not feeling excited about life. I'm just kind
Hmm.
of going through the motions. So when I made that decision, I went and got all my blood work done, every single blood test possible. It's cost me a lot of money, but I got
Yeah.
literally every
Right.
check,
Right.
everything to try to figure out what's the root cause. And then I got another ultrasound in my leg to make sure there were no more clots. And then after that decision, though, I something shifted inside me, and I just felt more confident and like I've reclaimed life from me. And that gave me the confidence to start a new business, which is Blue Goat Cyber,
Yeah.
which I feel like I'm behind the business because we focus on medical device cybersecurity. And if it wasn't for a medical device, I may not be here, right? So it also gave me a more of a purpose that's aligned with my business because our goal is to help medical device manufacturers get their devices on the market and make sure they stay on the market because someone's not able to hack into them.
Which, God, I feel so naive when I hear some what you just said, and I say that because you just assume they are going to be safe. If you're me, I'm not speaking for anybody. I'm like, well, of course they've got, safeguards. And then you first tell me about cybersecurity. Then you talk to me in regards to medical devices, making sure they don't get hacked. I'm like, well, of course they won't get hacked. They just don't, right? And then apparently the answer is no. So what are the steps that you're taking in regards to advancing that?
So we work with medical device manufacturers
Hmm.
before the device is on the market.
Hmm.
And we do a risk assessment. We try to hack into the device. We look at all the
Okay.
source code.
Hmm.
We do a very thorough assessment. It has to be very
Right.
accurate and complete.
Hmm.
And then once we do all that, we create a package, a cybersecurity package that they include with their submission to the FDA if it's in the US
Yeah.
to get their device cleared.
Okay.
And it's it's serious business because one of my fears or what keeps me up at night sometimes
Hmm.
is like if we miss something on a medical device, like we
Hmm.
miss a vulnerability and then later that device, let's say it's an implantable, a defibrillator is hacked,
Yeah.
that doesn't look good, right? Because somebody can
Hmm.
die.
Hmm.
There's been cases where people have been able to remotely connect to a pacemaker and a defibrillator and possibly shock somebody to death.
Oh, oh, Okay, so I wasn't thinking along those lines. Now, I would imagine, just based upon my conversation with you, and I'm really grateful for this part, that you feel things very deeply. I'm no psychologist, but I'm just watching and observing the way that you speak and how well you listen and pause and all that sort of thing, that you feel things. So you're running a company, not giving you something else to feel, but I was going to say, so you're running a company where the world like of hacking, it's like, for God's sake, from a personal vantage point, I'm averaging now about 3 emails a day of "we're deeply sorry," and they don't even say "we're deeply sorry" anymore. Like whatever the company is, they're just alerting you to the fact that we're going to give you 30 days of cyber credit because you've been hacked.
Mhm.
Now, in the world of medical, when you're already crazy vulnerable, I would imagine like the speed, to me, the speed of that sort of technology, the positive and the negative to me are unfathomable. The question is more, how do you look out for yourself so that you are able to help businesses without you being overwhelmed with the sort of, well, what ifs and that sort of thing? What are some of the personal hacks that you use for yourself because you're in a what I would say I can only imagine a highly stressful field?
So for me, this is part of my journey. I
Yeah.
I used to not feel anything. I used to just,
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm.
um, I,
Mhm.
I I think that was one of my defense mechanisms growing up. I couldn't get
Wow.
too, involved with it, so I had to unravel that and put
Hmm.
my guards down.
Hmm. Yep.
So now, yeah, I do feel those things, and they
Hmm.
do keep me up at night, and I,
Hmm.
can't sleep sometimes because I'm
Hmm.
always thinking about stuff. So I've kind of like the pendulum has swung a little, maybe a little bit too far the other way. So
Hmm.
what I try to do is keep balance and tell
Right.
myself, I'm doing the best I can do with where I
Yeah.
currently am.
Right.
Um, and it's a cycle. If you start over analyzing and feeling this stuff,
Hmm.
then it's going to put me in a state where I'm not going to be able to do better because I'm going to be consumed by things right now. So it's
Hmm.
important for me
Hmm.
to try not to be stagnant and to
Hmm.
evolve
Yeah.
and look at it through that lens.
Hmm.
So how do I get to the next step?
Hmm.
And if I'm consumed by worry or feeling too much right now,
Hmm.
then that could cloud my ability to get to the next step.
Hmm. Love it. I love it. When you're speaking to audiences, what are the things that I mean, every speech varies and changes, and I'm not
Mm-hmm.
asking for your signature speech or your blueprint, but more in the sense that what are some of the things that you feel that you could help people with when you speak? Like actual in addition to sharing your experience, practical steps so that whether it's a question of being more authentic, allowing your real personality to come into play, taking the leaps of faith to set yourself up and being strong enough to keep going. What are some of the things in your mind that specifically you want to convey to help somebody?
But there are a lot. I'll try to distill it to a few. I,
Hmm.
I think
Sure.
a lot of us forget that leadership starts by leading ourselves.
Mm.
So
Hmm.
at the end of the day, our life is really a culmination of our decisions.
Hmm.
And how we make decisions is extremely important. And I think
Mm.
the lens that we need to look through to make those decisions is number one, to figure out what you want out of your life and get some clarity on that.
Okay.
And then once you have that lens
Mm.
to make those decisions is much easier. Most
Ah.
people know what they don't want,
Hmm.
but they do not know what they do want. So if you know
Ah.
what you
Okay.
don't want
Hmm.
and you're always focused on that, that's what you're going to
Hmm.
get.
Hmm.
So I think it's important to do the work and figure out what you want. And this includes simple, maybe not simple things, but something is something like, what kind of relationship do you want? What kind of,
Hmm.
person do you want to date? If you
Hmm.
actually go through the exercise of writing that down and figuring it out, then you're more likely to attract that person
Mm.
than saying, these vague things like, I just want somebody that's successful. Like, what does that
Hmm.
mean? And
Hmm.
I know a lot of people, they're trying to find the ideal man and they don't have this criteria, and it's like, no
Hmm.
wonder they're not find the ideal person and they're in the same relationship over and over and
Hmm.
over. And this is not
Or
just
for
about
me, no
relationships.
relationship at
It's
the
it's about
moment. So it's
anything.
like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, this is about your business, it's about your wealth, it's about,
Hmm.
anything in life, your health. But yeah, having that clarity I think is extremely important. And then realizing that nobody cares about your life more than you. So
Mm.
stop blaming the rest of the
Hmm.
world. Like
Hmm.
me, I could have easily told myself, I'm just lucky to be alive. The
Right.
doctors said this, they
Hmm.
said that. I should just listen to them. But the reality is, they saw me for what, 15 minutes? They don't care about my life as much as I do.
Hmm.
So I need to take that agency over my life. And I think we all do, and realize
Hmm.
we are capable of much more than we think we are, also, especially when we have that clarity.
So you, in turn, I'm going to take one step backwards. I really appreciate that. So of you throwing the bottle of meds and you realizing I'm going to take control, take agency over my life, and then explain the steps of what the process. Uh, when did you know that you did the right thing when you made that choice to ignore or make a different decision, not ignore, make a different decision than what was put on the table for you, as you have now created a much more engaging, authentic blueprint? How long did it take you to get, like, to get right with that and make it work for you?
I knew as soon as I threw the blood thinners
Hmm.
across the room. I
Yeah.
knew that I knew right then.
Hmm.
And I thought, man, why didn't I do this sooner?
Hmm.
What kept me, you know, I guess it was back to that security and safety. I
Right.
felt, these things that
Hmm.
keep coming up in your life, there's
Hmm.
these issues. So yeah, as soon as I threw the blood thinners across the
Hmm.
room, when I knew I made the right decision. And that's when I started questioning, like, why I didn't do it sooner.
Hmm. I want to stay with that because it's the second time, well, technically the third time, that you've identified, why didn't I do it sooner? And so I
Right.
want to stay with that because in my mind, in people that I've encountered and met, there are people. Now I'm not pointing fingers, but and I've been guilty that never make the change. That, you know what I
Hmm.
mean? As opposed to beating yourself up over why didn't I do it sooner, you got people that literally hang on to things for the better part of forever. Uh, for those, and say they're in an audience, say they walk up to you after a keynote, or say they happen to be a client, or say they watch or listen to this podcast, or both. Uh, what would be for someone who's got that blanket around them, and this is how I live my life,
Hmm.
rather than tell them that they need to make change or whatever, what would be somebody who wants to make a change, has no idea how, what would be one of the first things that you would suggest to them to do if they've got that blanket, that in essence, that armor still wrapped on them?
Right. Two things.
Hmm.
One is, I believe in the story we tell ourselves.
Okay.
So I would ask, if you were to write a book about your life,
Hmm.
would the book be something you'd be proud of?
Mm.
Number one.
Hmm.
And then if the answer would be no, then
Hmm.
maybe they would want to change their life and look at it through that lens.
Okay.
The second thing that I do,
Hmm.
and I don't know if other people want to do this, but I always think, if I die today, am I going to have regrets?
Mm.
And
Hmm.
I look at it, I've read a lot of books about people on their deathbed, and almost everybody
Hmm.
has regrets.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I look at, did I take risk? Did I love?
Hmm.
Did I ultimately matter? Did I go
Hmm.
after things? Did I do things that are aligned with me?
Hmm.
And I have. So if I die tomorrow,
Hmm.
I'm okay with it. Or if I die
Hmm.
today, it's fine.
Hmm.
I don't want to die, but I've
Yeah.
I've lived through the lens
Hmm.
of going for things and not taking off that
Hmm.
blanket of comfort, as you mentioned,
Right.
because it's easy to fall into that. It's
Hmm.
easy to be comfortable and then go through your whole life
Hmm.
comfortable. And this is what goes back to that story we tell ourselves. If you
Hmm.
think about, if I were to write my story,
Hmm.
would it be something I'm proud of? And I think a lot of people get trapped in these stories.
Hmm.
It could be a story as simple as, I'm someone that doesn't get divorced.
Hmm.
That's the story.
Hmm.
So they stay in a marriage that's crappy for
Right.
40 years.
Mm-hmm.
And if they were to write that book about themselves, they would probably not be too happy with it. So maybe that story that you think is a positive story should be changed,
Mm-hmm.
to say, this is what I used to think, but my life is more important than my story.
Mm-hmm.
And I should maybe shift the story.
Mm. Love that. I'm thinking of two thoughts right now before we wrap up, which is number one, the power, like as you bring up regrets, and one of the real reasons I'm acknowledging you today is that this sense of the clarity of situations, like you brought up, like for instance, the accident that you witnessed and then helped. So then you went from a passive person, you happen to be in at the scene, and you actually helped the person. I'm picturing the woman where all that mattered was she needed to tell her husband she was okay. That was it. You know what I mean? And I'll use your phone or whatever, but I need to do that. And so when you're talking about this sense of writing your own journal, your own book, what have you, like I said, it's a reminder to our audience. Sometimes it's something it's going to sound like I'm demeaning it. It's something as basic as that can really impact situations. It not only impacted that woman, it impacted you to be there. So like I said, and it wasn't, cracking cybersecurity codes. It was somebody who just needed to tell her husband they were okay. And then I think about too, the sense of having data, and the data being in essence your own story. And then you get the chance to see, is it what you want in regards to regrets? I think it's a really powerful visual in both of those. And so I guess what I would ask is this in terms of overall, you brought up authenticity before. I'm glad that you did, or on the show. It's not like I invented the term, but it's what we're all about here in regards to communications. For you now, Christian, how would you define authenticity?
I would define authenticity as living my life the way I feel is aligned with how I want to live it,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of what society or other people or anybody would think.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And not being afraid to be me
Mm-hmm.
out of fear of being judged. So it's just really just
Mm-hmm.
living in alignment with who I believe I am, regardless of circumstances.
Mm. Christian Espinosa, I'm really grateful that you showed up for me today. Thank you so much for making time for me and for our audience. It's been it's been a great conversation. I'm very grateful to you.
Yeah, John, thank you so much for having me on. I
100%.
really enjoyed our discussion.
Thank you for saying that. I understand, and in the bio, folks, you don't have to take a lot of notes in this for what I'm about to say, meaning that we will have your website on the bio so nobody has to guess or wonder. I will also have the link to the book on Amazon that I referenced. Where else would be the best place to find you in regards to wanting to learn more, Christian?
I'm on pretty much all social media, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn,
Great.
YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
and my website, christianespinoza.com. My books are on Amazon and Audible as well.
Beautiful. I'll have the website. I'll have the Amazon links and what have you. And does your website have all of the? I've been on it, but I don't remember this. Does it have the social media links to get through, or would you? Because I want people to be able to have easy access to you.
Yes, it's on my website.
Perfect. Mm-hmm. This way, and that's the whole, I want people to have easy access to. I think this is a story as it continues to unfold that's really powerful. So Christian, again, I thank you very much for showing up for me today and being your best authentic self. It means a lot to me.
Well, thank you.
Absolutely. Folks, you've just heard another episode of Your Message Received. Keep liking, following, sharing, listening, whatever you choose to do, and we'll keep driving content through your front door. John Duffin here with Duffin Media. Keep coming back. We'll have, again, more to follow in a great way. Have a great day, all. Talk soon. Bye.
And now, making its way across the finish line, your message received has been a production of Duffin Media.